Hello, my name is Kyle Quillen, and this is part 4 of my series on how to program in Java. In this section, we'll be talking about the idea of iteration. This is also my final part of this section, so we'll kind of try to make a program that overviews everything we learned. Last time we talked about selection, which was the idea that our code can take multiple paths. So let's now implement the idea of iteration. Iteration means that your code can run over and over again, or it can repeat itself. Now, you might ask, well, can't I just copy and paste my code? And that is possible. You definitely can do that. But the main thing is, what if you want to repeat that code like 30 million times? Which isn't a real number. You can repeat it by. You're not going to want to make 30 million lines of code to print that out or to run that. You're gonna just want to have a section that does it for you. So right here, let's delete all the code in here, and there's two loops I want to go through, or two ways to do the idea of iteration. Let me fix how my code is displaying. So there's two loops. There's a for loop and a while loop. Basically, the difference is a for loop, you assign a value inside of it, and it'll run exactly as much times as you say it should. So for example, we're going to assign the value inside of it. Integer I. I is what's typically used for the for loop. It means index. That's not important right now, but later on, if you look into arrays, which is just like up here, this is a string array. It's a list of values. You can make any array from any value. I'll recommend looking into that next, because that is a very important concept to programming, but that's not part of the series, so I would look for outside sources for it. Anyway, integer I equals 0. 0 is the typical start index for an array, so that's why we typically make it equal to 0, but you can equal this to anything you want. And then we're going to do I as less than, let's say, 5. This is a conditional statement, so basically, let me finish writing this, and then let's put I++. Now, as you can see, integer I assigns the value 0 to I. Over on this section, what this means is when it goes through the section of code designated in these squiggly brackets for the for loop, every single time it will make the value I go up by exactly 1. And what this section right here, I is less than 5, it's a conditional statement that basically will check the value of I each time it repeats, and it'll stop repeating once I is either equal to 5 or greater than 5. In this section right here, you can really do anything. You can do I equals I plus 2 if you want it to repeat by 2, but I'm just going to make it iterate up once per run. And then let's just do system.out.print ln hello world. So what this program should do is it should repeat this line of code around 4 or 5 times. So let's save the code, compile it, doesn't throw any errors, and then let's run it. And if we look, it printed it 5 times. So for loops are really good for if you know the exact amount of times you want your code to repeat. Now there's a while loop. While loops are a bit simpler to write. Let me fix my code. For a while loop, it's as simple as just putting while, and then you want to use the same circle brackets or parentheses that we used earlier for the conditional statements, and then the squiggly brackets right here. And in here, let's just say num is less than 6. And then up here, let's put integer num equals 2. Now this a while loop is really good for if you want your code to repeat until it reaches this condition. So what it'll do is, instead of adjusting a value inside of it, it'll check a certain value and keep running until that value is met. This is good if you have conditional statements within here, with one section equaling true and the other one being false, and it sets the condition in here to either true or false. So then it will repeat the code until it's set to either true or false, whatever you choose. But for now, we're going to kind of use it for the same idea that we used a for loop for. One thing that's important about while loops is whatever this condition is in here, you got to make sure that within the loop, that condition will change. Because if it doesn't, then the loop will run infinitely. So right now, let's make sure we put that statement in here. Let's make it so num equals num plus 2. This makes it so whenever it loops through this, it will change value of num so that eventually it's going to be equal to or greater than 6, which will then make this condition equal false, which then will make it so the code won't repeat. So let's also put a statement above this. Let's do system.out.println. If you believe it, we're going to put hello world. And let's save it, compile. Oh, 2 errors. Oh, look at that. Println. As you can see, it told me the lines of these errors, by the way. It said Java line 5, which is the same line right here. Errors happen all the time. Even people who are experienced with programming run into errors every single time, so don't worry about it. Save it again, compile, and then run it. And look, it printed it twice because number equal 2. The first time it printed it out, added 2 to make it equal 4. Then it ran through it again because the condition was still true. Printed it out, num plus 2 equals 6, which is equal to 6. And this is designated for less than. So therefore, it stopped running the loop. Now you can also have statements within here this is called nesting. Let's make it so num iterates up once, so we can just do num plus plus. You can also do num equals num plus 1, but this is just a quicker way to write it down. And then we can say if num does not equal, let's say 4, then we can run, well, if num does not equal 3, then print hello world. And then after this, make sure that the number still is iterated up so it's not repeated infinitely. My code's a bit messy right now, I apologize for that. But keep in mind that anything that comes after these statements still runs. So it will check the statement. If it's true, it will then run this code, and then it'll still run this after because it's not in an else statement. If I put an else statement and then put num plus plus in there, then it will run that code instead if it's false, and only run it when this is false. But since it's after without being inside a conditional statement, it will still run no matter what. And another thing is you can also put loops inside of each other and conditional statements inside of each other. So keep that in mind when you are programming, that you're not limited to putting them only once. You can put an if statement inside of an if statement inside of a while loop if you really want to. Anyway, this code looks good to me. Let's check by saving it, compiling it. Oh, 2 errors. Look there, I forgot my very special semicolon. I put a squiggly bracket instead. Save, compile, run. Then it printed 3 times. We can say if, let's say, just to show it off better, if num is less than 3, then print it. And if let's save it, compile it, and run it, should only print once. Yep. And as you can see, it only printed once because of that conditional statement. And that's the idea of iteration. Now to recap, sequencing goes through like it's a set of instructions. Conditional picks a path for your code to go on. In this case, if this value is not true, then it'll just skip over this. And a while loop or for loop is the idea of iteration, which means that your code is, it repeats itself. So sequencing, selection, and iteration, these are core concepts in programming. Now, with all three of these concepts, using what you learned from these videos, you should be able to make your own basic programs. Now, if you really want to type in programs actively, say you want to like put in your own input and save it inside this variable, I would recommend looking to scanners, like I mentioned in one of the past videos. And I would also recommend finding other video series for more advanced topics in programming. The whole point of the series was to mostly have a good beginner guide on how to start programming and have all the information organized in a direct series where you could access it. And because of that, this series does not cover more complicated material. I feel like it's important to also know that YouTube is an amazing option. ChatGPT will help you by looking at your code, and it can tell you what's wrong with it and why it's not running the way you want it to. And really just looking into areas and trying to grow your knowledge base is always helpful. It doesn't hurt to try out new things when it comes to programming. And with the concepts you learned from these videos, you now understand enough to make a lot of programs. You would be surprised how much you can do with the knowledge you have now. So I would recommend playing around with it, applying it, and trying to make your own programs out of it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.